My phone died for 12 minutes, not 12 hours, 12 minutes. And in those 12 minutes, I couldn't access my ticket, couldn't verify a login, couldn't remember one contact number, and couldn't navigate 10 minutes through a city I thought I knew. I grew up online. I build online. I talk about technology for a living. And for 12 minutes, I felt digitally homeless. That moment forced a question I couldn't ignore. If we're the most connected generation in history, why are so many of us one dead battery away from helpless? I think we were taught the wrong definition of tech savvy. We call ourselves digital natives because we can move fast inside apps. We can post, clip, stitch, remix, schedule, optimize, and ride trends at insane speed. That's real skill. No question. But speed inside a platform is not the same thing as understanding the machine beneath it. I call this the intuition gap. The intuition gap is the distance between surface fluency and system understanding. Surface fluency is knowing where to tap. System understanding is knowing what happens after you tap. Most of us have the first one. Fewer of us have the second. And that isn't a character flaw. It's training. We were raised on products designed to remove friction so perfectly that they also removed visibility. No file paths, no obvious permissions map, no clear data route, no system map, just it works. Until it doesn't. When it works, we feel powerful. When it breaks, we realize we were renting power, not owning it. But that's not even the most interesting part. The phrase that shaped this whole conversation was digital natives. It came from the early 2000s and it sounded true. If you grow up with computers, you'll naturally become fluent. The problem is not that it was useless. The problem is that we treated it as total. Later literacy research kept showing the same pattern. Digital skill is not one bucket. It is a stack: communication skill, creation skill, evaluation skill, safety skill, problem-solving skill, system skill. You can dominate one layer and still be weak in another. A lot of us became elite at social and creative layers, but at the system layer, we're often improvising. That is the paradox. High social literacy, low technical fluency. Same person. Same phone. Same day. I've seen this in myself too. I can build a high-retention video workflow faster than most people I know. But there have been moments where one sync conflict, one failed export path, or one weird storage permission issue slowed me down more than it should have. Not because I'm incapable, because the muscle wasn't trained. I think this is where a lot of people get misread. They are not lazy, they are overloaded. There is a difference. When systems are invisible during normal use, every failure feels random. And random failure kills confidence fast. You start thinking, I'm just bad at this, when the reality is simpler. You were never shown a reliable mental model. So I want to give one. When something breaks, ask these 4 questions in this order. What changed? Where is the source of truth? What permission is blocking this? And what is the fastest safe rollback? If you ask those 4 questions consistently, technical chaos starts turning into technical pattern recognition. And once you see patterns, panic loses leverage. That shift alone can save you hours every week. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. This gap is not just annoying, it has a cost. I call it dependency cost. Dependency cost is what you pay when the system fails and you cannot recover without someone else. Cost 1 is employability. Employers don't just need people who can use polished apps, they need people who can debug, organize, recover, and adapt when workflows break. File naming discipline. Version control habits. Local versus cloud storage awareness. Permission debugging. Basic OS troubleshooting. These are not elite engineering skills. These are operational basics. When those basics are missing, smart people look unprepared in very preventable ways. Cost 2 is privacy. If you don't understand permission models, data pathways, or what sync actually means, your privacy decisions become cosmetic. You can feel private while leaking constantly. Cost 3 is security. Most security failures are not movie-style hacks. They're rushed clicks, fake urgency, account recovery confusion, and trusting interfaces you don't really understand. What you don't model, you can't defend. Cost 4 is autonomy. When one account lockout can freeze your work, movement, identity, and money flow, you're not using tools. You're living inside dependencies you didn't design. Here is what dependency cost looks like in normal life. You spend 2 hours making a piece of work, but you exported it into the wrong location and can't find it when the deadline hits. You think your notes are synced, but they were only stored locally, and a phone reset wipes a week's worth of planning. You get a legitimate security alert, but because you've never cleaned your recovery settings, the lockout process becomes a second emergency. You trust auto backup, but never verify restore, and discover too late that backup without recovery is only a comforting story. None of these are dramatic disasters. They're ordinary failures. But ordinary failures repeated over months become confidence loss, time loss, and opportunity loss. And the psychological part matters. After enough invisible failures, people stop experimenting with systems and retreat into only what feels familiar. That is how technical confidence shrinks, not in one big collapse. In 100 small avoidable moments, this is where the conversation usually becomes lazy. People say Gen Z is bad with computers and stop there. That diagnosis is shallow. Here's a better one. Modern interfaces did exactly what they were designed to do: reduce friction, increase adoption, keep you moving. And they succeeded. But every design decision has a shadow. When complexity disappears from view, comprehension often disappears with it. We stopped seeing the system, so we stopped building system intuition. Not because we're dumb, because the environment rewarded convenience over comprehension at every step. Convenience is a feature. Comprehension is a discipline. We got the feature. We skipped the discipline. And now, when life gets technical, panic shows up first. But here's where it gets useful. If the intuition gap is learned, it can be unlearned. I use a simple framework called the literacy reset. 3 baseline skills. 1 week, no ego. Skill 1 is file system fluency. Create a real folder architecture for your work this week. Projects, assets, exports, versions. Archive. Then enforce naming. Date plus project plus version. No more final v3 real final. If you can find any file in under 20 seconds, your system is improving. Skill 2 is permission and identity hygiene. Audit your top 10 apps: camera, mic, location, contacts, files, background activity. Then clean account recovery. Backup email, recovery phone, authenticator app, backup codes stored offline. This single step prevents more chaos than most people realize. Skill 3 is failure drills. Practice 3 failure states before they happen: phone lost, account locked, laptop won't boot. For each one, write your first 5 actions. You are not being paranoid. You are rehearsing continuity. Technical literacy is not about becoming a developer overnight. It's about becoming harder to break. If this series is useful and you want more of this exact angle, not fear content, not fake hacks, just how digital systems actually work under the surface, subscribe. And if you want the next episode, I'll do one on cloud storage myths, what sync protects, what it doesn't, and why so many people lose backed up files anyway. Drop cloud in the comments if you want that next. The goal is not to reject convenience. Convenience is amazing. The goal is to stop confusing convenience with comprehension, because when that confusion gets expensive, it gets expensive all at once. So keep your speed, keep your creativity, keep your platform instincts, but add system literacy underneath all of it. That's how you stop being a passenger in your own digital life. My phone died for 12 minutes. Have you had a moment where everything looked fine until one technical failure exposed how dependent your whole day was on one device or one account? What happened, and what did you change after that?